Hello, America. Recently, in Congress, a super committee is formed. They say that they are very powerful and will push their legislation through. And they are in the interest of corporations. Speaking in the interest of corporations, and they claim, after having almost defaulted on loans and having to borrow another $1 trillion, and having our credit rating downgraded by the S&P, that raising taxes on corporations will devastate the economy through unemployment and will hurt the deficit. In lieu of this argument, I'd like to go over some of the history of how we got to the problem we are in. Here we see a graph from Time magazine reflecting that the U.S. has been living beyond its means. The federal government has spent more money than it has taken in during most of the past 4 decades. It's a little hard to see because the lighting's bad in here and I don't have quality equipment. Working on a low budget, but let's go over some of this. Very simple data, basic. Here the graph begins, if you can see this mugshot here, it's Nixon administration. When our dollar was taken off the gold standard. The red section reflects income or revenue, and the black reflects our federal spending. And here we start to see that spending started to exceed our income or revenue. Then we go into the Ford administration, and we had a deficit. Carter. Now, with the Reagan years, Reagan campaigned on a platform of cutting federal spending, which he really did not do, or his actions as executive were not consistent with that. And began economic theory called supply-side economics, which supported the supply side of the economy through lowering taxes on the owners of the means of production, or i.e. the corporations. Here we see the deficit started to dramatically incline, and income or revenue decreased. Then they go into the Bush administration era, and this problem still continued. Now we move into the Clinton administration, when the tax code was reformed, and not only did spending start to decrease, but revenue began to increase. And we even had a period during during the Republican Revolution in Congress, when Newt Gingrich was Speaker of the House, and in combination with some of his policies, when well, from here to here, there was a Congress dominated by the Democratic Party, and then we had the Republican Revolution, and then in combination with that, during these years, we actually had a surplus. Not speaking of affirming either party, Democratic or Republican, that's not the point. But there was a period during the Clinton years when we actually even had a surplus with the budget. Then we move into the Bush years, when the tax code began to reflect the supply side theory again. And revenue all of a sudden dramatically declined, and spending began to increase again. Then we got to the situation with needing the bailouts and the stimulus packages and TARP funds and everything. And from here to here, our deficit ballooned, and our revenue went down to a dramatic low. An all-time low. And we see this huge gap in the deficit. Around 2008, we were borrowing about $5 trillion. Now recently, we had this budgetary debacle where we couldn't even make it borrowing $14 trillion. And in the interest of corporations, politicians are whining that taxes cannot be raised to bring in revenue from corporations. All throughout this period, from the Reagan administration on to the Obama administration, production and employment has been outsourced to other countries, and we currently do not have a major production backbone in this country because corporations have not been loyal and they've been outsourcing employment to other countries. Now, after all this, why are we going to trust this old, tired, worn-out sophistry about lowering taxes on corporations to increase employment to bring in revenue? It hasn't worked this whole time. I say fund a new company that's going to start production and employment in the United States of America and make products made in the USA, and not trust these people. Thank you.